welcome back to the channel. My name is Alba in case you guys are new here, and today we are going to be talking about how I passed the NCLEX in 96 questions, not 60, not 130, not 75, but 96 questions. I hear a lot of people, talk about how they passed in like 60 questions and stuff, but just keep in mind that every person is different and every case is different. So it's not always gonna be the same for every single person, and telling yourself that you're gonna pass in 60 questions or 75 questions is not always a healthy mindset. Just know that if you're still going on in the actual test, that you're still in the game. Okay, so a little background about me. I am not a traditional nursing student. I'm actually an NP student now. So it was very, very important for me to pass this in the first go. I had 4 semesters of, BSN criteria, I guess you could say, that is required for NCLEX, but I am moving on to NP school in the fall. But it was very important for me to just pass it this summer and not retake it in the fall, because in the fall I obviously have my NP curriculum to worry about. So even if you're not in a graduate entry program, even if you are in an accelerated BSN, or if you're just doing your ADN and you're a regular student, like a traditional student, I feel like you will still find this video somewhat helpful. So the number one thing that I did was have a folder. So I made this huge folder. I know it's kind of scary, but I had a lot of useful resources in this folder. You can have a notebook if that is more helpful to you, but I decided to have a folder because I used a lot of different resources, you guys, a lot of different resources, and I kind of just needed one place for it to have everything. So this folder was really, really helpful to me. So in the front of this folder, I have the structure of the NCLEX in the beginning, just so I have an idea of like what they kind of expect from this exam. I did a Kaplan review, you guys. I'm sure a lot of you have done a Kaplan review as well. That was provided from my school, but I'm not sure if it really helped me answer some of the NCLEX questions. So yeah, I really needed like a very in-depth content review, because the past 6 months I didn't necessarily have NCLEX material very much. So I had forgotten a lot of things for the past 6 months. I really needed a very deep, very serious content review. So I reviewed my drugs, I reviewed peds and OB, adult critical care. I also found some mnemonics, which I will list down in the description box, so you guys can go click on that link. They're free. So those were somewhat helpful as well. And obviously number 2, which I would definitely recommend that you do, is just know your labs. Know your labs, all of the basic labs. You don't have to know the very specific labs, but just know your labs by heart, because you will be asked a lot of questions on labs as well. So that is my tip number 2. And then for my content review, guys, like I said, I had a very, I didn't really know where to start, honestly, because I had been gone for like 6 months or so. So I actually found this YouTube channel, which is called Summit College, and I think it's a trade school in California somewhere, and I found them through a Facebook group, which goes to my 4th point, I think I'm counting it right, but my 4th point would be joining the UWorld's Facebook group. You can find a lot of resources on it. But back to my 3rd point, basically just look up Summit College and NCLEX. I will again link them in the description box. It is meant for LPNs, but it is extremely helpful for RNs as well. So I would highly recommend that you check out that channel. That is where I mainly got a lot of my content review. I also listened to MK when it was available on YouTube. When I was introduced to MK, I didn't really know that it was like copyrighted and stuff, and I think that channel has been removed, so unfortunately you can't really find MK audios on YouTube. But there's also someone called Nurse Anna, and if you're able to find like a DVD or something, I would highly recommend that you listen to her as well. I'm pretty sure she probably has an updated DVD now, but that is something that I would highly recommend. Like if you really need like a serious content review, I think you really should check out the 3 people that I mentioned. So I don't think you can check out one of them anymore, but it's copyrighted anyways, so I don't want you guys to get into trouble. And basically guys, UWorld was also a supplement to my NCLEX prep. A lot of people talk about UWorld, and I kind of know why they do that, because honestly the NCLEX looks exactly like UWorld, but the only thing which is different from UWorld and the NCLEX is that they don't have the, you know, the option to like highlight or cross off. Those are the only things, but it looks exactly like NCLEX, and it was really helpful to me. I didn't really use the Kaplan QBank that I had, which was given to me, and I did do a Kaplan review, and unfortunately that just didn't work for me. And to be honest, I would not recommend it, because I know for some people it has worked, but for me personally it just didn't work. The remediations just are not helpful for some reason, and I just didn't really like it for whatever reason. But the remediation was not helpful, so definitely stay away from Kaplan if you can. If that's the only QBank that you need to use, then go ahead and use it. But I think UWorld was worth the investment. So if you do have, you know, the money, I would highly recommend UWorld, at least the QBank. So here's my thing with UWorld. The QBank's great. However, the actual, you know, test yourself, so like the assessment portion, you can only take that once, and it's not exactly like the NCLEX. Like it's not designed like the NCLEX. I think Kaplan also does CAT exams, and that's what I use to assess myself. And I did it 3 times, and I definitely would not recommend doing it 3 times, because that's actually kind of scary. Because the 3rd time I got a red light, so it gives you like green light, yellow light, red light. I got green lights the first 2 times, so green light means I'm ready to take the NCLEX. And then I think the 3rd time I got a red one, and it stopped at like 100 something questions, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, and that was 2 days or 3 days before my actual exam date, and I was not really happy with it. So just don't do it too many times. You know, a couple of days before your test, just relax. You know, if you can find MK notes, I would highly recommend that as well. That's another resource. I'm not sure it's like copyrighted or not, but yeah, I definitely would recommend joining the UWorld Facebook group. They do ask you like a password and stuff, which, you know, nursing students would know, just to make sure that you're a legitimate like RN student and are wanting to take this test. So that is something that I would highly recommend. And what else? Yeah, so with Kaplan, I said do the CAT test, just don't do the QBank. The QBank is not very helpful. Knowing your labs, I mentioned that, and just knowing like medical emergencies. So I actually have this another notebook which goes through some of the common medical emergencies, and this is the NCLEX-RN cram plan. I heard another YouTuber talk about it, and it is helpful. You know, it goes through a lot of like medical emergencies in a very short form, and it also talks about the interventions that you would do as an RN, and it's just not overly complicated or anything. It's an easy read. I also had, you know, the Saunders book. I actually freaked out with the Saunders book. It is a good book, guys, don't get me wrong, but the problem with it is that it's so thick, it's overwhelming, it kind of stressed me out, and I was like, I need to pass this and move on in the fall, you know, and I don't have a lot of time. And I ended up returning that book because I was mainly using UWorld and the lectures, that I talked about earlier, and the Summit College lectures especially, and I will, like I said, link them down below. And I was just like, yeah, I am not gonna use this book, so let me just return it. I did rent that book, but if you like reading and if you can, you know, get through textbooks, if you are really good at reading into details and stuff, then I would recommend it. But if you want a more simplified version, I probably would recommend this, and the audio stuff that or the video stuff that I talk about from Summit College. I like totally forgot to mention this, but please remediate. It's very important that you remediate every single question. Even if you got a question right and it was like a random guess, please go ahead and remediate. You never know what question you're gonna get in the actual test. Also do like at least 75 questions or more per day. I kind of did it like 75 back and forth, so 2 sets of 75 questions every single day for 6 days a week. That's kind of how I did it. And there would be times where, you know, I would do like a bigger test, so like I would do like those assessments after a couple of weeks. So that is something that I would definitely recommend that you do, because it's very important to keep yourself in track of like doing those NCLEX style of questions. The reason why I say that is because on the NCLEX there is no guarantee of how many questions you're gonna get. You can get, at least as of now, I know this is gonna change back in September. It's gonna go back to 75 to 65 or whatever it is, but right now it's 60 to 130, and I thought I was gonna get all 130, but I ended up getting like 96. So it's always like a good thing to like practice and not just think about that minimum like 60 questions. I need to pass this in 60 questions. It doesn't always work that way. Now my NCLEX experience, so I tested on a Thursday, and I went in there, you know, wearing a mask and stuff. They're being very anal about that, and it's totally understandable because, you know, we are in a pandemic, and it was really stressful to prepare for NCLEX in this pandemic. I do have to say that. It was really frustrating because I had to work with the Ohio Board of Nursing. I had to wait for a really long time. I had to wait a really long time to get the permission to test, to schedule a test. A lot of different things were kind of going on. So I should have actually tested in the first week of July, but because of COVID, I ended up testing like midweek of July, which is still okay. But don't wait too long to take this test, honestly. Like, give yourself minimum of like 6 weeks maybe, and if you're ready before that, that's great. But I gave myself a little over 6 weeks, about 2 months, which was kind of a lot of time. I couldn't really test earlier, so part of it was not really my fault, but that's what ended up happening. I went there and, you know, I sat through maybe like, I think 3 hours or 2.5 hours or something. It shut off at 96 questions. I really took my time to answer those questions, guys. I didn't rush through them at all. It definitely is one of the hardest exams you will ever take. I have no idea how they evaluate your ability to pass and stuff. Yeah, it was just like really weird, like very different than UWorld questions at times as well, but the format looked very similar. I will say some of the NCLEX questions were a little bit easier than the UWorld questions in my opinion, But when I walked out of there, I was like, I definitely failed. And then I did the quick results, and the entire weekend I was like stressing because I didn't get my results until I think Tuesday. When I did the quick results, that's when I got it. So I still haven't received my official license and stuff like that. But that's what ended up happening. Do focus on positioning, and also try to focus a lot on safety and infection control. There's a big component of that on the NCLEX that you're tested on. They really want you to know your safety and infection control, and positioning. Those are some of the things. And this book actually does have the positioning. It does have some of the infection control, not a lot. I actually made a sheet where I had different infection control stuff, so maybe I'll share some of the sheets that I made with you. They're empty sheets, and you're gonna have to like go ahead and like write on them, but those are some of the things that I did for me. I really studied really hard for this, you guys. I really needed to pass in the first go. So thank you so much, you guys, for watching, and I hope this video was somewhat helpful. Like I said, I will put all of the important links down in the description box so you guys can go access it for yourself, and I hope you have a good one. Bye, guys.